Hi guys, it's Rebecca Mara here. This is my first video I'm doing chilling in my chair, and I want to talk today about narcissists. And it's a really important thing to know about that I wish people that had narcissists in their lives would know about. I just had a client who is splitting up with a narcissistic husband, and there are some really important things to know about how to work with the energies and the karmic energetic patterns when you have a narcissist in your life, whether it's a parent or a spouse or whatever. So the first thing that a narcissist needs is control, and they can't be wrong. So in order to control their child or their spouse, they're going to have energetic hooks invade your energy body and paralyze parts of you so that they can keep them controlled. So it's almost like, I guess it is cords like that, where it goes in to control and disempower part of you. When people grow up with narcissistic parents, a lot of those people end up with autoimmune diseases because of the anger or the rage that they experienced that they couldn't express. There was nothing that they could do because they would get attacked by that narcissistic parent if they expressed anger or rage or communicated that it was wrong. So that anger and that rage got buried in most children of narcissists' bodies, and it's pretty frequent that they do have autoimmune diseases because that anger and rage never got to be expressed. So even if they don't actively feel angry or don't have a sense of that, it's likely to be unconsciously buried in the body, in the soma. So what you would need to do then is get some kind of body work to help release it, or a somatic experiencing, or some kind of trauma release. Practice holotropic breath work, moving it out through dance, but it has to come out through the body. You can't just sit and talk about it. So one of the patterns that happens with those big energetic hooks is the narcissist sends a big cord or a hook into that person in order to disempower them. But the thing is that usually for the children of narcissists and for the spouses afterwards, sometimes they keep open wound that, because their energy field is used to being invaded in that way, it feels familiar, and there are holes in their energy field that are used to having people penetrate them, or used to being invaded. So one of the most important things to do is to notice that energy doesn't have to have power over you anymore. I don't know if you guys have watched Labyrinth. It was one of my favorite childhood movies, but David Bowie plays this narcissist, manipulative, controlling person, and the girl Sarah is in this whole like kind of manipulative, seductive world that he created for her to control her, possess her, and everything starts shifting around, and all of a sudden she has this moment of sobriety, and she says, "You have no power over me." And he freaks out and is like, "No," because he's found out that he doesn't actually have the power and control over her that she thought he had, and he no longer has power over her. This is sort of what happens when we wake up from our relationships with narcissists, or the patterns that we carry because of the relationships we had with narcissists, is you wake up from this illusion that that person has control over you, and you realize that they don't, that it actually is a choice, more so in our adulthood. I'm sorry, you don't have that much of a choice when you're a child, unfortunately. But eventually you can find that you have a choice to engage or not engage with that karmic loop. For one of my clients, as she was untangling with this narcissist husband, another way that you can be hooked into that pattern of disempowerment is if you do not want to accept that narcissist is not going to hear you. If you want that person to learn their lesson, and they may never, you're going to keep trying to control them until they can hear you or until they change, and chances are that's never going to happen, especially with the narcissist personality, because they can't be wrong. It's too much of a wound for them. So what you can do to unhook from that opening where you're in a constant karmic struggle, where you're used to the struggle between you and the narcissist, you're used to the story that you keep telling yourself, that victim story, and you play that in order to try to control the isness of the situation in order to be right. Like if we're convinced that we have to stay with our story of being right, you're never going to heal. As long as you can't accept what happened, or you want to shame or blame that person, you are in an energetic war with that person, and you're going to continue to struggle and suffer for as long as you hold on to that in an attempt to, but it should have been to control, well, it should have been this way, or you've got to hear me, or I want you to suffer, I want you to be punished, or whatever your story is. I need you to hear me, I need you to help me, whatever you're coming up with, that's going to keep you in a full-on karmic struggle with that person. A person who may never learn, a person who may never listen, and a person who may never get what they deserve. That's all on you. So one thing I like to communicate when it comes to this place of isness, when we start to unravel from the karma, is it feels kind of like, I know for some people when there's a big accident, like let's say there's a car crash, and for some people their nervous systems get hypo-aroused and everything slows down. It slows down so much, it's almost like a dream, and it's so peaceful in the middle of this sort of disaster or chaos, and everything is seen clearly. To me, the isness is sort of like that state, because you wake up from this illusory dream that you have control over another person, or that you have control over what's happened in your life. And as soon as you accept this is what's happening, this is what happened, and you make direct contact with it, you're not observing that just from a mental space, because conceptual stuff really doesn't make a difference. This is an energetic sobriety where you stop struggling, where you stop warring with that experience of that person controlling you, or that person hurt me, or whatever your story is. That will keep you in karma, and coming into a complete direct contact with the direct experience, with the isness of the situation, is the key to your liberation. And the problem with that for most people is that you can't be right anymore. You can't be the one who's the victim. You can't be the one who is right. And there's a liberation that happens when you decide that you can be free, that you can drop the rope, you can stop the struggle. And when you realize that that person can also be free, that both of you can be free. It's one of the most liberating feelings, because you realize that your story and the way that you thought things were aren't exactly the way that they are. And you can use that contraction or that pressure or that pain or that wound for your growth and development and for your awakening, and that's the gift. There might not be a reason why these painful, traumatic things happen to us. and you have to be okay with that. It doesn't have to make sense, but you can get really sober with the isness of what happened. And when you can be in direct contact with it without any resistance, without looking away from it, without turning your back to it, and to say, I see you, I see and feel all of you, then you can be liberated. And in the best case, you can liberate the wounded part of yourself and the wounded part of that person back to God, back to the light, where you can say, I see where I was wrong. I can see why I allowed this reaction in me, this reaction that hurts me. And I can see why that person reacted in a way that hurt them and me, or that the way I acted to hurt that person. When you can see all of that, then you can send it back to grace, or you can let grace make contact with it. You can let the light make contact with it so that it can be brought back to love, which is our true state, which is the ultimate truth, is that love. And the gift of this whole experience with the narcissist is that it can bring you to a place you never would have gotten to had you not been squeezed so hard by life, had it not been so painful. One thing that is important to know, that when you are unraveling the karmic cording and the entanglements and realizing that you don't have to carry that person's energy in your own body anymore, that you don't have to carry those cords and entanglements in your own system anymore, that you get to have your own sovereign energy body. When you start to realize that stuff, anger and sadness and maybe grief, whatever feelings will so likely come up along the way. And when that happens, it's important for you to not attach to a story, but it's important for you to choose to do some inner child work where the sadness, you go in there and meet it and love it. There's no reason why you should be a victim. You don't have to be a victim. These are opportunities for you to love parts of yourself and to set them free, and you become more empowered and more beautiful and closer to grace than ever before. So when the sadness comes, you go and notice what that wound is and love that part. When the anger comes in, you go and notice what that wound is love, and love that part. So you are free. You can be free. And this experience with the narcissist is really important to understand. Now, when you unhook cords or you let go of their energy, this isn't about pushing away. If you push away, it's just going to come back in. It's a vacuum effect. So you have to be neutral about the other person's energy and their experience. You have to be keep a listening mind instead of a mind that has conclusions. So when you untangle or you release cords or you release the struggle, it's likely that that person's going to get angry and try to hook in even stronger. It's quite possible, because then their food source or their thing that they were able to control to feel safe or better or whatever is gone. And so they're going to want to get that back. So it's your job to know as a light warrior that this is likely to happen, and you still stay open, soft, open, and neutral about this experience, but you practice energetic discretion. So when you feel a contraction starting to happen or a density or something that doesn't feel good, then you're going back into old habituated sensation, emotion, story, whatever. So catch yourself when that happens and start finding it's almost like finding a radio frequency. Start finding that higher vibration. Start finding that place of peace or that place of freedom, and don't let yourself loop in a negative struggle with that person. So you can be there with their experience and get it, but you don't have to struggle or fight with them. So ultimately, these holes that were created in your energy field, where you're used to being invaded or controlled, they need to get sealed up And you need to feel like you deserve to have your own sovereign energy, that you deserve to be free. So any parts that are afraid of that happening again, the fear would be an opening, and what you need to do is bring love to that part, to seal that opening with love and protection. So this is the kind of protection that you're not used to having. And some people still, they want to have those openings so that when the attack happens that they're used to, they get to fight with it or fight back because they feel like they deserve it. You can't do that. You have to keep your open, light, spacious field. It's like, just allow yourself to be free. Allow yourself to feel good, and allow yourself to be loved. Drop the struggle. The narcissist isn't bad and you're good. They aren't the bad one and you're the victim. It takes two to tango here. And it's different when it's a parent and a child. But the sooner you can drop the story of right and wrong and good and bad and be with the isness and the material that you can learn from, that's when you become an empowered being. And all of life is learning to bring love to parts that are wounded. This doesn't mean not having boundaries, but it's about understanding the broken part of that narcissist. The narcissistic wound is excruciating. It's about being able to have compassion for that excruciating wound that they have, and the excruciating wound that you got from being in relationship with them. So I think that's all I have to say about this, but it feels really important because I keep seeing the same patterns over and over again with people, and if you just knew these simple tools, there's so much more that you could be doing in your life, and there's so much more freedom that you could find. Yeah, so feel free to post any questions that you have about this video, and yeah, I think that's all I've got today, but I hope that this was helpful. Feel free to email me or book a session on my website, but I hope this was really helpful for you guys and that you can create more of an empowering situation from what you've learned about being in relationship with narcissists. Thank you. Take care.